It's about that time of the month again where a multi-millionaire influencer decides that they're going to go fully mask off and prove to everybody just how out of touch they are. Out of touch with what you ask? Reality. Completely living in another dimension of privilege, entirely forgetting that the only reason they exist in such privilege is built from standing on the shoulders of the people they now laugh at. Yes, I'm now going to talk about Pokimane.
When people are like, oh my god, $28 for cookies? It's 4 bags. That's $7 a bag. I know math is hard when you're an idiot, but like if you're a broke boy, just say so. Anyways, moving on.
For those of you that don't know what you've just seen, let me fill you in. Pokimane is a popular streamer on Twitch, one of the most popular in fact. She's got tens of millions of followers across all social media platforms, tens of millions of dollars in assets, and like most other live streamers, has done her fair share of oopsies while live, which has resulted in some absolutely classic YouTube apology videos.
Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. This video is to address recent comments and criticisms that I've received.
So I'm going to try and speedrun the info of what the big controversy is and not go into too many details. A lot of videos covering this are probably going to go into the many controversies of Pokimane, what she's said, what she's done over the years, but that's done to death. So instead I want to look at how ridiculous this entire situation's been and how this drama has basically been created out of nothing at all apart from ego. First off, timeline of events. What started it all was the most mundane, boring shit you can imagine. Pokimane released some cookies. Seriously, that's what this is all about. Her snack brand, Miner, was released, along with the first product called Midnight Cookies. These cookies were heavily criticized for 2 reasons. First, the price. Each pack of 4 ounces costs $7, with the only way to buy a pack being a 4-pack for $28, plus then of course shipping and handling fees. Basically $28 for 16 ounces of cookies. Expensive, yeah, definitely. Then the other reason for the criticism that ties directly into the pricing is that these cookies were very quickly discovered to be a slightly different version of an existing snack that is sold in Costco called Tootsie's Midnight Cookies. Now these were already criticised by some people for being expensive, although nice, and they were $10 for 14 ounces. So for like a third of the price you get almost the same amount. So there you go, that's the whole drama, at least the initial part of it that shouldn't have really been a big deal in the first place. Basically people were accusing her of ripping off the brand. Now obviously a multi-millionaire didn't rip off a well-known cookie brand, she just worked with the creators of those cookies, Creation Foods, to make her own version with a slight change up in formula and with her own packaging. This is commonly referred to as white labeling. And sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but this is how a lot of things are made, especially influencer products. So basically, this drama is that the cookies are similar to other cookies and more expensive. If this entire story ends there, obviously I'm not going to talk about it and I'd basically be sleeping because realistically no one should care about any of this. Influencer products are always going to be more expensive because you're buying something almost exclusively for the name brand behind it to support them, at least to begin with. Later on maybe the product stands on its own and, you know, takes a life of its own away from that brand name, but at the very beginning you're basically paying a premium because it's from the creator that you watch. Otherwise, why would you buy them in the first place? You can probably get good cookies at a local place. Why would you need to get these? So them being expensive is not that much of a drama in my opinion, other than to say, oh, greedy influencer millionaire wants to earn more money for their greedy influencer millionaire lifestyle, which, you know, water's wet, I guess. So this was kind of confusing to me to see everyone going too crazy about it because this is just another thing that they do. Obviously, nobody's ever seen an influencer version of a product having unique value or being a lower cost of a generic brand. That's just not real life. So as a content creator myself, when I saw this going on, I thought, Pokimane's been around on the internet for such a long time, doing this job for such a long time. She's just going to ignore people talking about the price, clarify on the fact it's not a rip-off, and move on with life. Continue to just earn her dragon's hoard of wealth like she's been doing for the last 5 or so years. You know, life goes on. Because obviously as a multi-millionaire sitting in a mansion, why the fuck do you care if people are complaining about things you do on the internet? It just doesn't matter, does it? But obviously Pokimane made the classic mistake of addressing a controversy that she had no reason to even acknowledge, and in doing so revealed how ridiculously out of touch she is with reality.
Like, oh my god, $28 for cookies?
Now let me first explain to you that you absolutely do not, as a multi-millionaire influencer, ever talk about money. Nothing you say regarding finances or money is going to be relevant to 99% of your audience, the audience who literally made you that money, by the way. You don't have their problems with finances, you don't live in the same world as they do, and you've likely been so far away from that world for such a long time, if you ever lived there in the first place, that you're entirely out of touch with it now. So don't pretend to have money struggles, don't talk about how much money you have, don't flex the amazing new lavish things that you've bought or done, just leave the topic alone. No good can come from it, ever. Pokimane, however, looked at people talking about her product, most of which were not her customers in the first place, and decided to address the whole situation with a broad stroke of nothing but stupidity, essentially shitting on every one of her audience who shared the criticism that the cookies are too expensive by calling them broke boys for not wanting to buy her expensive influencer marked up products.
Like, if you're a broke boy, just say so. Anyways, moving on.
And of course, this is the same energy.
You're broke! You're fucking poor!
Now, before we continue, just for context, here is another clip of Poki talking about money and how much of it she has.
Why would I compromise my morals and ethics for more money when I have money? Something about that is so cringe to me personally.
Obviously, people started digging around her VODs and finding things, and the broke boy shit immediately set fire to this whole situation, simply because Pokimane thought the best way to address criticism is to make broad statements about anyone making that criticism. What made this all worse is that instead of just understanding that this was a glaring mistake and being a human being with a response to the shitstorm, Pokimane tried to style it off as a joke, when clearly anyone who has a functional brain can see and hear that this is not a joke, it's her actual feelings on the topic. To say this is a joke illustrates either she doesn't understand what a joke is, wants to gaslight the entire population that does know what a joke is by saying it is one, or is going with the stupidest PR move possible when there's a real easy alternative. All she had to do at this point was to say, yeah, sorry guys, been getting slammed on social media over this, and I was frustrated, so I made a remark that I shouldn't have done, and upon reflecting on what I said, I understand it was wrong, and I shouldn't have conveyed my thoughts in that way. My emotions just got the better of me. A super easily understood human response. Instead, calling people broke boys and then saying, lol, I'm actually joking, haha, XD, it's, you know, it doesn't really work, does it? Now that's all I'm going to say on the whole Pokimane, what she said and did. Instead, I now want to talk about the Pokimane Defense Force and the elephant in the room, so buckle up, because this is where it gets wild. A Twitter user, and I believe also a Twitch streamer, posted this in response to the backlash about Pokimane. Not the cookie drama, but of course when she called her audience broke boys for not buying the cookies. It says essentially that because some other bad content creators who do bad things don't get dogpiled for doing so, people doing it to Pokimane for a slightly less bad thing are sexist and, checks notes, hates women. Now obviously, this tweet is patently false in every single way, and aside from the fact I can read the words that are there in English and understand what they mean, it makes no real sense from start to finish in any other way. Firstly, the content creators she mentioned are some of the most criticised creators on the planet. There are literally hundreds of videos about them, and some of these creators are actually deplatformed off most of the big social media sites. The idea that those people aren't being criticised for their actions is so wrong that in order to think so, you would either need to be unaware of who they are in the first place, making their example useless, or to ignore this fact in order to build a lie about what comes next. The framing is that people are criticising Pokimane purely because she wants to sell cookies, which as far as I'm aware is a straw man. I've not forensically analysed every account on social media in existence, but I've also not seen any highly upvoted, liked or retweeted posts that do this. People criticised her for the price and for the white labelling that they likely didn't understand, and not for the simple fact that she wanted to sell cookies. If she said, I'm going to sell cookies, and people went, oh no, that's really bad, you shouldn't do that, that would mean they were criticising the choice, and not the fact that people said, oh, they're too expensive, which means they're criticising the price. Obviously, both of the points here that are made are already wrong, but both are only there to prop up this idea that to criticise someone for something is inherently sexist just because they happen to be a woman. For the sake of things, what is sexism? It's prejudice or discrimination based on sex. So she's saying you can't have an issue with what Pokimane said unless you hate women, which obviously is not how any of this works. Now, I will also say, just because this is a real thing, There are a lot of sexist gamers and a ton of people who will jump on any bandwagon against any woman for any reason because they are sexist, and that does exist. But that doesn't mean the actual core criticism means you are being sexist if you use that core criticism. There will be sexist people who jumped at this opportunity and got involved, but that happens regardless, and labeling real complaints such as this as sexism does nothing but harm people who do experience real sexism based on their gender and not on complaints about a human's actions. And to illustrate that this isn't based on sex, you only have to look so far as any other content creator in history who has been criticised for similar practices. XQC flaunts his wealth by sending pictures of his expensive watch to H3H3 during their disagreement, and of course gets rightfully utterly shit on by the internet for being an out-of-touch clown about money. XQC responds to criticism about him making money reacting to war footage, tweets a picture of him holding money to his ear with a suitcase full of cash. Again, complete criticism from pretty much everybody for him doing this. Logan Paul sells Prime, you know, that drink that all the kids go wild for, and he of course gets utterly shit on when it's being overpriced in shops. In fact, you only have to be a content creator to know there's a vocal portion of everyone's audience that will utterly destroy you in your comment section or anywhere on the internet for anything when it comes to making money. Sponsors, merch, products, anything you do. This is a common thing. For whatever reason, people don't want you making money, and if you make something and it's expensive or more expensive than other things, despite the fact you probably don't have all the infrastructure built up to make them cheaper in the first place, people will criticize you. It doesn't matter who you are, what you look like, you know, what's between your legs. This is nothing to do with gender. Never was. So basically we can add this to the list of things people turn into something it isn't in order to push their very clear bias and agenda. Apparently no one can have legit criticisms about something someone does nowadays without it being some form of prejudice or hatred if that person is a certain group. A concept that only harms when people experience actual prejudice for real reasons. So realistically, this whole thing was a complete non-issue until Pokimane made it an issue and started doing something she should have known better than to do. She's been a creator now for close to a decade, I believe. She's been through so many controversies and posted Hall of Fame YouTuber apology videos regarding the things she's been caught doing, so it should very much confuse you when she's getting caught up in something so clearly stupid. It's a classic case of letting your ego get in the way, something that these multi-millionaire influencers seem to be incapable of escaping. But then again, I guess that's why people like Elon Musk buy Twitter. When you've got all the money in the world, what else do you have other than your vanity? But there we go. That's how Pokimane turned an absolutely nothing burger into an indulgent family feast.